Hello, welcome back. I hope that your bottom is sitting on a comfy chair, ready for another episode of this gibberish we call my cooking channel. Hello and welcome anyway. Not really much gibberish to talk about today, other than in the video itself where there's plenty of gibberish, other than the fact that this is a cake. And for anybody who knows me well, and for a few people who don't know me well, I'm absolutely awful at making cakes. There is something about opening the door of an oven and putting something in and closing it and waiting for a while that has seemed to be a huge, great a gaping gap in my knowledge of cooking. I can do most things. Oven, and that includes roasts and things, but cake particularly. But this one worked out really, really well, which shows that anybody can do it, believe me. No added sugar, but that doesn't mean this is a cake not full of naughtiness. It's plenty of naughtiness. It is not Slimming World. It is not Weight Watchers. It is a cake, and a damn fine one. Let's get on with it. And what is on today's sweetly delicious board of goodness? Well, we have, I think, about 220 grams of dates of your choosing. You don't need to get really posh ones. These are fairly cheap ones. About 300 grams of raisins, or you can do a raisin and sultana mix. That might be better, but I couldn't find any bloody sultanas, so I'm just using raisins. But yeah, 300 grams of raisins and sultanas in some sort of mix. 280 grams of butter. There will be 280 millilitres of water, but why put water on a board of goodness? Water's in the tap. A can of condensed milk, 300 grams of plain flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder or bicarbonate of soda, 1 large teaspoon of jam or marmalade. It doesn't matter. I'm using an apricot conserve. A good orange marmalade would be equally as nice. And I'm going to throw in about 100 grams of pecan nuts because I've got them in the cupboard. This original recipe didn't call for any nuts, but I think this is going to be really good with nuts in. A decent cake tin thing. You're going to grease this and line it, and some baking, parchment. Yes, and you're going to line that and cover it. So let's get on with it. Off we go. Set the oven off to 170 degrees. And so we start. And weirdly enough, for a cake, we start in a pan. Never done that before. Normally you start in a bowl and you finish in a bowl. But I'm not. Starting in a pan. All of the butter into your 280 mils of water, which is warming up nicely. Melt that. This is an odd recipe, yeah. And all of your condensed milk as well. La-ta-ta, la-ta-ta, let the butter melt. So, yes, let's give this a minute to let the butter melt. Nicely melted. Actually, let's have a taste of that. I've never tasted anything like this before. Oh, bloody hell, wow. Condensed milk, water, butter. Oh, that's a heady brew. To which we'll be adding our dates, roughly chopped. Make sure you take the stones out, because that would be quite unfortunate later. And in with the raisins, or raisins and sultana mix. Now this is going to bubble away for about 4 minutes. It's going to simmer for about 4 minutes. I'm presuming all the fruit, the dried fruit, will start taking on the liquid. So let's give that 4 minutes. So I was right. The dried fruit is beginning to take on the liquid. So what we need to do with this is put it to one side and cool it right down. There are other things we can be doing while we're waiting for this to cool down. So, and over here in this corner we have measured out 300 grams of flour. Now I think this comes down, I think I've hit upon why I'm not particularly good at anything that goes in the oven or cakes and things like that. It's because you have to do things exactly. So I've actually measured out 300 grams of flour. Whereas if any of you have seen a lot of my other videos, we start off with the recipe, we start off with the amounts, and I do kind of add or take away and things as we go. Cakes, you can't do that. Anything that goes in the oven is some sort of chemical thing, and you can't do that. And at the moment, all you can see is me talking and my finger wiggling around, so shut up. Right, our teaspoon of baking powder stroke bicarbonate of soda, and our generous teaspoon of marmalade or jam. I'm generous teaspoon. I think I'm generously teaspooning too. So anyway, going to mix these up and then leave it to one side while we are awaiting our cooling raisins and stuff. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to put the pecan nuts in now, my handful of pecan nuts, which aren't necessary to this recipe, but I think they're going to add something to it. So we mix in the pecan nuts, or pecan nuts, or pecan nuts, or pecan. Anyway, P-E-C-A-N, pecan, whatever you want to call them. Right, we put this to one side for a second. And out comes the cake tin and the parchment. So what I want to do is create an inside for the tin, but I want to extend it because I'm going to do a bit over the top as well. So I reckon that is about there. Oh, this is exciting. Now, this is the first recipe where I've included a scene that does no stirring and things. So anyway, yeah. So roughly that's the idea, and then enough for a bit of a lid over the top. I'm going to try and cut into that to make it a bit better fit to the tin. But anyway, this is roughly the idea, and probably a little bit of butter around the edges, just yeah, just to moisten the parchment. Right, I think my mixture here has calmed down enough, so I'm going to put it in bit by bit and then stir. So no, let's get that in there. Oh, I was supposed to be going to a couple of really good operas this year, but I booked a holiday. So I'm going to Croatia in May, me and my lovely wife. So Peter Grimes and Marriage of Figaro will have to wait for another year. I haven't seen opera in a very, very long time. And I thought I quite fancy a bit of opera. Alas, it is not to be. Why am I telling you this? Well, it's because it breaks up the monotony of watching me stir things, particularly cake things. So, right, I'm going to give that a minute of stirring. So that is very nicely stirred in. So now we're going to do the very exciting and hopefully doesn't go everywhere, pouring into the baking tin bit. Right, see if I can do it so you can see it. Because naturally I'm right-handed, so I would have held the dish with my right hand. But for the purposes of video, we try it with our left hand and then spoon out with our right hand. Oh, this is exciting stuff. You're all going to be writing in going, will you shut up? That looks really, really good. So I'm going to fold this over, and try to fold it over, and try and tuck it in a little bit at least. And the reasoning for this is because it's going in the oven long and slow, I don't want to burn it. So, a little bit of hole in the top to allow steam, and so I'll probably take this off at some point in the last 10 minutes of the cooking though. So that's in the oven now for 1 hour and 10 minutes, but I'm going to keep checking on it about every half an hour, and then in the last 10 minutes I'm going to take that top off, I think. Let's see how it goes. 1 hour and 10 minutes anyway, at 170 in the oven. La 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 la. Right, that's straight out of the oven, so it's still very hot. I left this lid on for the whole of it. It didn't seem to need that final bit, and there it is in all its glory. I'm going to let that cool down for a minute or two, then I'll cut it up, and the final photo will be the finished article. Woohoo! I've done a cake and it wasn't terrible. Yes. Yeah. Anyway, next time. Bye bye.